The topic of my presentation is how the public opinion is changing under the influence of hybrid, pro-Russian, anti-democratic propaganda. We heard this morning a very interesting presentation speaking about the channels of disinformation, of manipulation, of propaganda, really very interesting and done by young, well-prepared researchers. But finally, we always have the question, does it work? Or it doesn't work? Which works better under quote, or which channels or propaganda messages do not work? Because we have no doubts that the ultimate aim of all these messages is to change the public opinion, to change the geopolitical orientation, to make the people, to increase the people's fears, etc. So my first, how the public opinion is changing under the influence of this propaganda or narratives. The second small topic is how the trends in the public opinion are connected with the changes of hybrid propaganda, because we are sure, and it has been well shown this morning, and we have the same observation here in Bulgaria, that the pro-Russian propaganda is changing very, very adaptive, very clearly, and do not stay on the same level. How the public opinion is changing and is connected to this adaptation of the propaganda. And finally, but most important, it is my concern, my deep concern, what is the answer? What are the answers of democratic players? Have we an answer? We know a lot of things about this propaganda. We know a lot of, we have a lot of facts, fact checks, etc. But have we some reactions? Or we only are on the stage of study, and after that, what to do after having a good knowledge and understanding of this propaganda? I will go very quickly. First, my starting point is a large-scale survey done by GlobSec think tank institute, maybe you know it, and in 2021 they launched this project, the GlobSec Vulnerability Index. The project covers 8 Central and East European countries, you can see on the slide, including Bulgaria, but other countries as well. And he is based on a complex research methodology, really very interesting and very large-scale project. They have conducted opinion polls in each country, experts interview, desk research. They have used different indexes of Transparency International, VDEM, etc., etc. You can see all of them. I will not repeat because we are going more quickly. They cover 7 dimensions or 7 areas: public attitudes, political landscape, public administration, academic and civic space, and measured by 31 indicators. Vulnerability score is measured on 0 to 100 scale, where 0 is the most resilient and 100 the most vulnerable. Where is Bulgaria on this scale? We know, I think that we are the most part of the auditorium are Bulgarian, and we know all the weaknesses of our country. We know the information landscape, the political landscape, public administration, etc. But according to this research, and I entirely share the conclusions, The Bulgaria is most close to the vulnerability, more than 50 points, 56 points, and occupies second place from these 8 East and Central European countries on public attitudes. On the other, you can see third place, third, 4, 5 place, with less than 50 points, more close to most resilient, only public attitudes with 56 points. And please remember, we are speaking about the memory for 15 minutes, that the most prestigious place is on the civic and academic space. We will come later here. They measure, speaking about the public attitudes, they measure different dimensions, orientations towards the EU, NATO, Russia, China, perception of democracy, and trust in conspiracy theory and disinformation. With our friends from Social and Human Studies Foundation, we did not so large scale, smaller project, trying to measure the public attitudes after the war in Ukraine, because the index has been launched before the Russian war in Ukraine. And I will mention some data using exactly this research, social political monitoring of Alfa Research, 10 focus group discussions we have organized, and content analysis of online media publication done by Sensica. My friends use also this system. Not so advanced and sophisticated as artificial intelligence, but enough good data to compare what happens in the ecosystem of media, of online social networks, and what happened in the public opinion. In the beginning, some, how to say, positive trends. We can see that after the war, the beginning of the war in Ukraine, the trust, the positive attitudes towards the EU increase, and the negative are going down. I will not mention the figures, but you can follow the trends. Just to follow the trends, we have many indicators. Here are the attitudes and what will happen in Bulgaria if Bulgaria leave the European Union. Both of them mention that the Bulgarian stay firmly pro-European, even more after the beginning of the war. What about NATO membership? The same trends on the lower level. We know in Bulgaria that usually we trust more the European Union than NATO, but more positive trends, especially, please, see the second graphs when we have data from 2017 to 2024, and we can see that the question was, when you look back and reflect on what has changed or on what would have happened if Bulgaria was not in NATO, you can see that the rejectors and supporters of NATO in 2011 have been the same, almost the same proportion. 37 to 32. What is not the case in 2024? 48 to 29. The distance is not so big, but the gap is larger. What about one of the most important characteristics in Bulgaria, the attitudes towards Russia and Vladimir Putin? You can see very spectacular drop. Before the war, the support, the approval for Putin always has been very high in Bulgaria. Here we have 45 to only 18% negative attitudes, and vice versa, immediately after the beginning of the war, more or less the same trends. With Russia, a little bit more positive image. So we have some. What stands behind, and I will go very, very quickly. Here we saw some trends, some measurement in the public opinion, but what we discovered in our focus group discussions, in the interviews, and in the other questions of these surveys. We saw the co-ops of some sustainable hybrid narrative that were relieved. Here we have some of them. They are not all of them, but the most sustainable and the narrative which influence different part of the society, not only one group. First, Russia and Vladimir Putin are reliable partners and peacemakers. In Bulgaria, it was something that usually Putin and Russia, the peacemakers. Russia is powerful. It has the most modern and advanced technology, values human life, and strives to help broadly peoples. Here I have only the one sentence, but we have behind them different narratives, different stories. Sometimes 10 different stories, sometimes 20 different stories, but it is the paradigm of the narrative. Europe, and especially Bulgaria, cannot survive without Russian gas. All of us, we remember this very well, that gas, oil, and other energy resources. The continent will be covered with darkness and cold. We remember these very illustrative pictures. Russia is the best friend of the small Slavic peoples. Another very sustainable narrative. Fights for their freedom from the Ottoman Empire until now, and against malicious Western, anti-Orthodox, etc. influence. All of this sustainable stereotype or narrative collapsed, and we register for the first time that the public opinion, the public mindset share the opposite. The eventual victory of Putin in Ukraine would encourage not only the Kremlin, but also other countries to impose their power on smaller states. So we saw that, let's say 22, 23, the beginning, we saw some resilience comparing to the vulnerability detected by the GlobSec Vulnerability Index, some resilience, increase of the resilience of the Bulgarian public opinions. But I have fears that the positive story ends here. The positive story ends here because we saw very quick, very sharp changes in the strategy of hybrid propaganda. And it was a strategy of, to use this market notion, multi-level strategy, because they change on the macro level and on the micro level as well. What have been the main changes? First, relativizing responsibility for the war in Ukraine. Okay, Putin is not a good guy. It was impossible to save the image of Putin. Impossible to save the image of Putin. And if it is not possible to save the image of Putin and Russia, it is possible to do something else. To say that, okay, they are guilty, but Ukraine and the West, the global West, provoked Russia. And different narratives behind this. Putin is not okay, but Zelensky and Ukraine, they are not better. Second, peace versus war. Political parties, I give some examples, small example, because I have not enough time to not only to explain, but to mention all the narratives. Political parties, we know this very well, supporting the aid for Ukraine, has been named as parties of war, and pro-Russophile, the parties of peace. The same as we can see now in Georgia. It was absolutely the same narrative, the same message. Third, the West, the USA, the embassy in Bulgaria, they are the metropolis and masters of the dependent Bulgarian state and politicians. The West, it is a new one. The West sacrificed the poor Ukrainian. It is something very cynic for its own interests. The West pushes the Ukrainian to continue the war for their interests. Their solidarity with Ukraine is hypocritical and selfish. And new wave, a conspiracy theory. It is on the political macro level. From my research, from my observation, from our common projects, I think the most dangerous influence of this propaganda is on micro level. Not on macro level, but on micro level. What are the main strategy, the main messages? First one is to make erosion of the moral image of the West and presenting it as a threat to the national identity, traditional values, family, and especially to identity, national and sexual orientation of children. Maybe for more of you, it is near to be crazy, but it has been a huge negative wave in Bulgaria. We voted against the propaganda of non-traditional sexuality in the schools. All these people know very well what are the traditional values of Bulgarian people, and they pointed their propaganda on the children. If we speak about the events yesterday, it is more simple. Why the West is against us? Not the level, the cultural level of the FPS of Bernard Shaw. It is another, our identity. What happened and what will happen with our children, with our Orthodox religion. Second, narrative provoking and maintaining the feeling of hostility, ressentiment. Milena used very well this notion, reused, and disintegration of the society. What is the message? The Volga elites, implicitly pro-Western, are corrupted and mercenary. Here I have one sentence used by the people in focus group: by sword and majesty, they must be removed. Here it is maybe you discover of the play, we have two parties, sword and majesty, and they will fight against the pro-Western elite, Velicie and Match, the two parties. And something what we know from our latest elections, the so-called nationalist, not so nationalist, pro-Russophile parties, they won around 30% of votes on the last election. 25 of them are in the parliament. 4% is near to the threshold, but it is possible. Okay, I'm going to the end. It is very interesting, just to show this, that it is what is the effect of all this propaganda message on two levels, political and micro level. In dark blue is the social capital of trust. Social capital of trust only to limits to family member and eventually to some relative. All the other, ordinary strange, government, political parties, parliament, we have no trust at all. We have total disintegration not on the political level, but on the everyday level. I'm going through the findings, and I will just mention not challenges, but my concerns. We have, and here I come back to the first slide, where the academic knowledge and civic space have been measured as very resilient. We have, and we can show here, good academic understanding of the phenomena such hybrid war and propaganda. We saw this morning. Capture state, facade democracy, democratic deficiency. But we have poor public narrative to focus attention on their everyday manifestation and their impact on the economic standard, justice and prosperity. Okay, when we have some problem, usually our community say, okay, I understand, it is capture state. And here we finish, we know everything. But it is not something which is easy to be understood by the ordinary people. We have the story, they will take your children, and here we have, hybrid propaganda. What is the weight of two? We have, second, loud, active, and aggressive political and social media spokespeople of pro-Kremlin and anti-Western theses. And we have more silent, passive, and distant actors representing the Euro-Atlantic orientation. And finally, the challenge on my concerns, even the politicians from the Euro-Atlantic spectrum do not participate in the public debate of arguments because they fear the mainstream of public opinion. The public opinion is pro-Russophile, that's why we do not participate with arguments in this debate. By not participating and not presenting their narratives, they expand the scope and the influence of so-called malignant hybrid propaganda. How to react in this situation? It is my concern, and I think the challenge. I said this morning that I think that my generation lost the battle with the hybrid propaganda, with the nationalists, with the populists. And I have fears that if we are not proactive and we stay only in this conference hall and in our debates, the other generation, your generation, will be at risk too. I will finish here. Thank you. Sorry.